Welcome to a special edition of Business Mentorship Keepin It Real in collaboration with GroYourBiz, an organization that supports female entrepreneurs through peer-to-peer advisory boards. We'd like to introduce you to Susan Kabani, an award-winning entrepreneur who is the founder and CEO of a membership and community platform, Eugenie. Susan is also co-chair for one of the GroYourBiz boards and joins us today from London, England. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
You know, it's a wonderful connection today, Susan, and I know that you'll agree that every entrepreneur starts their business with a great idea. So for our viewing and listening audience, give us a little insight into how you came up with the idea for this communication platform.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I think most ideas and most businesses come from a problem, right? A problem that the founder had themselves. And so ours is, it's going to sound a little bit first world, but when I first met when we first married my husband, we were a newlywed couple, and I've always been quite type A, CEO type personality. So when we got married, I assigned him several tasks that he would have to take care of in the household. And one of those tasks was dropping off and picking up of dry cleaning. You know, he works in this, he's a financial investment banker. And so he wears a lot of suits and, you know, everything needs to be dry cleaned. So I said to him, you just need to take care of that because living here in the UK, you guys can probably tell I'm an American, you know, usually just jump in the car, drop off your dry cleaning. And it's not that big of a task. Here, there's never parking anywhere. Like we all live in a very, you know, it's very small. It's a big adjustment for me. But anyway, I digress. Week upon week, he just, you know, where's my suit? And where's this shirt? And I need this. And it just never got done. And I saw a neighbor walking home carrying his dry cleaning. And I thought, well, we probably use the same dry cleaner, right? It's a local community, local neighborhood. And my husband and I also, so it clicked to me that maybe we could build a platform where community members could share tasks. So, you know, if I'm picking up, someone else could drop off, or, you know, mom's at a nursery, and all these are just things that we thought that people could share, you know, just came to mind. So we decided that we were going to build a task sharing platform. He as a finance guy, me as a lawyer, that's my background. And so we found a company here in the UK to help us kind of take that vision to prototype. It's very different today, but yeah, I've got to say that us fighting about dry cleaning brought me to where we are.
Well, you know, when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they say their great idea came around the kitchen table. So your idea is very unique in that it was family oriented, right? And you're very true that, you know, we're always trying to solve a problem with our business ideas. Now, Eugenie is now an international platform and it's used by both memberships and community groups. And I know it's an app. So tell us a little bit about the app development, because I'm sure lots of folks who are in our viewing, listening audience are thinking, you know, yeah, it would be really great to have an app, but it's very expensive, it's time consuming, and maybe nobody will use it. So tell us a little bit about how things develop to getting into an app.
Gosh, yeah, it is expensive and it is difficult. And I reckon because there's so many solutions out there today, I think a lot of businesses actually shouldn't build their own app from scratch. They should, I guess, test their ideas first with another platform. But, you know, as a non-technical founder who has essentially built Eugenie twice, because we built our first version on a shoestring budget. It was a very different, you know, model in terms of the way we designed it. Because also we learned quite a lot from that first, you know, couple of months and beta testing and understanding who's going to use it and why. And actually the first idea that I shared, which was the task sharing platform, where you're not that anymore. And I do think if we had gone down that path, we probably wouldn't have made it, because it's not just about building the app. It's about all the finance and the budget you need to get people to the app. And then if, you know, they don't stick to the app, then you need to get more people to the app. And so there's this whole thing, you know, a cycle of building an app and actually making an app successful. I think my biggest lessons learned were, and I got this advice from other people as well, was, you know, test something with existing solutions to see if, you know, you test your business model. Is it viable? Will people use it? And of course, sometimes you realize, yep, you have to build a bespoke app. That's just what the business is. But, you know, we've got businesses today who have a membership or community model at the base of their business, who use a white labeled version of our platform, meaning we copy it at a fraction of the cost. And then they can test the model and understand if then it's necessary to build its own app. But I will tell you, as a non-technical founder, there's so many times where I asked my team for one thing and they delivered something completely different. So it's like learning another language. You're kind of like, I need this, and they deliver, and I'm like, where's the disconnect? This is not what I asked for. So yeah, I think it's been a challenging road, and it's, there's so many technologies always changing as well, which is why we also rebuilt our app, because the language that we had chosen was becoming more obsolete, and we wanted to bring even our early stage business a little bit forward. So yeah, we've actually built it twice now.
Wow.
So
so you're a pro. You're an absolute pro at app development.
Oh my God, no. I know how to developers, but if you ask me to code anything, I don't know.
Yeah, forget it, right? So now you mentioned that you're a lawyer, and I know that one of your specialties was intellectual property. So tell me how those, because we're always talking about transferable skills, right? We've all done something else before we, decided to take that leap of faith into entrepreneurship. So tell me a little bit about how your skills as an intellectual property specialist, as a lawyer, really helped you in the development and creation of the Eugenie app.
Immensely, in that I'm not the lawyer for the business. Actually, we hired more specialists to help us, with all the things that we need to do for Eugenie. But I think understanding data, protecting people's privacy, my specialty also was going to be with sports and entertainment law. So it was all about protecting people's personas and their, kind of identities. And I think obviously with social media over the last couple of years, there's such a blurred line of what's my identity belongs to me, and what's can a big company use and appropriate. And so I think especially because when we were doing our, research phase of Eugenie, of who would use Eugenie and why, one of the big things that actually kept popping up was people were moving away from social platforms because they weren't private enough. And, for example, nurseries and schools, they're not going to use a social platform to host a lot of their content. Churches and religious organizations that we were speaking to didn't want to use that. So the idea of protecting our privacy, on a lot of different levels kept popping up. And so having the background that I did, being able to also just reinforce to our customers that, look, I appreciate that these things are important to you, and I actually know how to protect them for you. So, and part of that is outsourcing, right? I don't necessarily know specifically. Brexit changed a lot as well from a data perspective here. But in general, the world is more careful about their data and their privacy. So I think having that background definitely helped me understand what I need to be looking for, if anything.
Sure. So let's use myself as an example. So I come to you as a prospective client, and I have a membership-based organization, and I'm really struggling with communication. People are looking for things that are easy and quick and dynamic and responsive, and I'm just not providing that to my client base. So what are some of the things that you could explain to me about the platform that would help solve some of those problems for me as that organization?
So I guess there's a lot of different things I would ask, but the first thing I would ask is who your members are, right? Where do they hang out? Are they Facebookers? Are they Instagrammers? Are they most comfortable on WhatsApp? So, we're not a social media platform, but we appreciate that people use lots of social to talk to their members and communities. And Eugenie is very much like a private version of Facebook groups or LinkedIn. So that's what we provide for our customers, that intranet type of system. But if you were looking for, a very chat-based platform, I might not recommend us. But I would also ask, what is the value prop? What brings your members to your organization in the first place? Like, what is it that they want? Is it peer-to-peer banter? Is it more content from you? Are you, a lot of times I think today, and I was actually talking to somebody else about this, because a lot of people are creating memberships and online communities, and it's not easy. It's actually not a very, very challenging thing to do, especially with all, so many people not doing it. So I think fundamentally if it's not working, maybe it's not the communication. Maybe it's, what are you fundamentally offering? And is it something that people value? And if that's actually the problem, then let's take a look at what you're actually doing. Is it email? Are people opening your email? Is it social media? Is it because your content, because Facebook has changed its algorithm so much that so many businesses that it worked for a year ago or 3 years ago or 6 years ago are not getting the same results that they were used to get. So it's about understanding, again, are you being penalized by the algorithm, or is your members actually not coming and checking in on your content? So there's a lot of things that we have to establish, right? Is it a communication problem, or is it just people have a lot of noise and they are not prioritizing the membership? So yeah, sometimes it's a really hard look at actually the business model itself first, and then can we fix it with communication or the tech?
So what are the type of things that folks are using Eugenie for? So are they, is it replacing things like newsletters? Is it keeping communications top of mind? Is it a chat? Is it an opportunity for, say, me to connect with members in other countries and time zones and all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, so our vision is to bring all of that in together to one place for the organization that's using it. So although I don't think email is ever going to go anywhere, email is still the top thing that people always check no matter what, as long as they're not putting it in their spam folder. But some of our most successful communities use email as a recap of what's going on in their community on a week-to-week basis, so that, because you're always going to have different types of people in any net membership or community. Some people will never check wherever you set up, right? They only want something into their inbox. They're still a very valuable member of the community, but that's just how they are. And then there's other people who are super active. So what we say here at Eugenie is we just want to bring that into like one place. So if your members need to access your content, right? If you're a coach, for example, and you're sharing lots of content, or a mastermind, it shares all the content. If community is important, all the conversation can also happen there. If there are other kind of things that the business needs to flag. So for example, we have a private members club here in the UK who took our white label model as their members app. It's actually the entire system rather than linking it to other things. What I mean is that our app is where they then can book something else, but that system is built elsewhere. So we end up being the one-stop shop for the customer or the member to get access to everything else. And for a lot of the smaller organizations we work with, it's actually enough and they don't need anything else.
So what is sort of the sweet spot? Because, I think for folks who are sort of listening to our conversation and they're thinking, oh, well, I must have to have, 500 members or 1,000 members, or, how big does my community have to be? So is there a sweet spot before it comes financially viable to use Eugenie as your communication tool?
No, some of our most successful communities are 10 people. And I think that's the thing. Yeah. I have one that ran their first, because it's a community, it was an educational community. The purpose was to run a mastermind. They were charged, and it was an expensive also course, right? It was £2,400 to be in the program. I have another community that's 25, is very active. It's a woman who runs a club for women going through menopause. And the whole idea is an intimate club for, people. She's now going to build and expand the business. But ultimately, I wrote an article recently for Community Leader magazine, and I think vanity metrics. I think Facebook has taught us to focus on numbers versus quality. And, yes, of course, there's a cost associated with running a membership, whether it's our platform, your own time, because I think that people forget that, right? How much time it takes to build something like this. But at the end of the day, it's not about number of members. It's, I think, about the quality of the conversations. Now, viability from a financial standpoint, then you have to kind of work back. The smaller businesses, the smaller communities that are using Eugenie, they're still charging, they're profitable. But I guess if you want to charge $5 a month, for example, then yes, you need a lot more members.
Right, for sure. Because I think, as to your point, communication is usually the top of mind reason for moving to a platform like yourself, ease and comfort, because you're dealing with the security aspects as well. But at the end of the day, it also has to be something that people are going to use, right? So usability is, and I'm sure you help folks with the marketing of the tool so that they can get engagement or increase engagement amongst their members.
Yeah, no, so I mean, this is why we've designed it to look like LinkedIn and Facebook, because they've spent billions of pounds creating a user experience that people can use, right? Anywhere from like a teenager to my grandma can use Facebook. So I think once you land in something like Eugenie, you definitely know how to use it. I think the biggest challenge people have is transitioning people away from other systems. Transitioning them away from Facebook or transitioning them away from something that may not work as well, but is good enough to a certain degree. And I guess my advice on that is always is that at some point you need to just have one place, and you need to move people away. And as a leader, almost just, you know, understand your longer term vision for your business as well, and not be, I think it's really unfortunate because in the last couple of years, I've seen Facebook groups being taken away from people, Instagram accounts disappear overnight. And of course, we're still a third party, and, you know, the tech is being run for you, but we're a private company, not a social media. We think it's free, but it's not.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. So tell me a little bit about mentorship, because I know that you really believe in mentorship. You know, we've all had mentors that have helped us in our own businesses. And part of the premise of the Grow Your Biz peer-to-peer advisory groups is mentoring each other through some of the challenges that we have in business. So tell us a little bit about being a co-chair for the peer-to-peer advisory groups. And what does that mean to the group of individuals that are part of your group?
Yeah, I mean, I started out in GroYourBiz actually as a member, so I have gone through the entire journey. And I think what attracted me to it was having the ability to not just get. I've always had Barbara, who's the founder. You know, she's been phenomenal. You know, in mentoring near and wide. I think she helps every single member of GroYourBiz, even though it's such a big organization. And it's been crucial to understand, you know, to be able to see other people's challenges and problems so that I cannot avoid making those mistakes.
Right.
And I think that's been quite important. But from a peer-to-peer aspect, I think it's, you know, we're each other's mentors, and because we're going through the same thing at the same time, it's just super relevant, and it makes you also feel like you're not alone to a certain degree. So I'm not sure if I'm 100% answering your question perfectly, but I really believe in that model in trying to work with not only getting mentorship myself, but giving back to other women who can then again avoid making some of the mistakes that I've made.
Well, you know, I think what's really important in an advisory group, because larger companies have advisory groups, right? I mean, they sit down and they do the round table thing, they brainstorm, they come up with solutions to problems. So I think what's really innovative about being part of an organization such as that is you've got different people from different businesses who also bring their experience to the table, and being able to discuss things and come up with real-time solutions, I think is really very important. And I'm sure that, now tell me a little bit about who would be a mentor for you. So, I mean, you know, you're a very accomplished entrepreneur. You've been on this journey and on this road. You know, we all start in the trenches, and, you know, we all make mistakes, and we just keep sort of picking ourselves up and moving forward. But in terms of mentorship, if you had to give someone that you sort of looked up to when you were in that sort of beginning stages of business, who would that be?
Gosh, it's so difficult. I mean, because
there's lots of people, right?
So many people.
Yeah.
And I've also been fortunate by, you know, having so many people help me along. I think there's no specific person I would say, but I think any female founder who's been able to successfully raise a decent amount of funding and kind of move the dial forward in that whole investment for female founded businesses, I think is someone I would look up to, because it's such a skewed world still. Like, we're still getting a much smaller percentage of the funding that's out there, even though female founded businesses are more profitable sooner and do well longer. So I think that, you know, there's this one woman here in the UK, and fortunate enough, she has agreed to give me some light mentorship, but she built a business from scratch, found the funding for it, and exited the business as well. So for me, I think that would be phenomenal to kind of get someone to guide me through, because we're about to raise our seed round. You know, Eugenie has built everything. I think the pushback I sometimes get, and I get it mostly from guys, I shouldn't be completely gender biased, but it's true, is you should have raised more money sooner. And I think if I had, I would have built a very different business that maybe wouldn't have been successful. We've gone very slow, but we've done all of our marketing until a couple of weeks ago was organic, referral-based marketing and sales. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think having someone else who's been through this process from kind of building the business, raising funds, and then exiting would be an amazing mentor for me.
So tell me, you mentioned, you've given us a little bit of some insight there that you're getting ready for expansion. So I'm sure that as part of your expansion plan, you're also looking at increasing the dynamics of your team. So tell us a little bit about what expansion looks like for Eugenie.
Yeah, well, we hired 4 people this year, which has been quite
That's
interesting.
huge.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, mostly up until this year, it's been me and my tech team, essentially. So I handled everything, and then they would build me the tech. And so we're starting to bring on sales and marketing team members as well. I think, despite the fact that there's all this noise out there that there's people need jobs, it's been a very difficult year to find good talent, I will say. And I don't know, I've been talking to other startups and founders that have also experienced that. But for me, it's now, we spent the last few years really trying to build Eugenie, and there's always room for improvement on the tech, don't get me wrong. There's always going to be another version or another feature.
For sure.
But I think where we're at the moment is I'm starting to feel very comfortable that we can start to scale the product as it is. And the biggest challenge we have is not enough people know about us, which I think is a lot of people's challenge. But for me, the expansion will focus on, we've already started to identify our talent that we'd like to bring on board, which is, I think, quite important, because sometimes as founders, you raise the money and then go try to find the people. I found the people, now I need to find the money. We're going to bring on a chief marketing officer. We're going to bring on another couple people on our sales team. We'd like to bring on, again, another person who does, from a technical perspective, product experience for our customers. But my biggest vision for Eugenie is that we never take away the personalized support that we give our customers, because I think ultimately tech isn't enough for a lot of businesses. They actually need to understand how best to use it for their business. And we need to just, I have to figure out how to scale that, but that's really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, to the conversation that we'd had a little bit earlier, when I said that I know that you give marketing support to the people who are taking on your platform, because one of the, as you say, it's really great to have the connection piece with an app that will meet your needs. But how do you convert the user to a friendly environment where they feel really comfortable with it? And I love the idea that you've taken some components from other successful platforms that people are already used to, so that it kind of breaks down that technology barrier, right? And makes it a little bit easier for folks to understand.
Well, I mean, it's consumers today, we expect it, right? We won't use anything that's too complicated, and we'll abandon it before first of all, we resist to even try it. And then,
yeah. So in terms of, you've mentioned a little bit about bringing on your team, and we've talked a little bit about tech and how tech is always going to change. So you're going to be working on that in the background in terms of your business. But for you as an individual, a founder and an entrepreneur, tell me a little bit about how you balance being a founder and CEO of an organization. And, we'll take the conversation back to just real life and family life. And how do you make that connection between those two things?
I have got to be really honest, and I think the pandemic has forced me to do it, almost. It was, I think I was probably on the way to burnout before I was forced to stay at home. So of course, it's, and I've heard this from, I think actually a lot more people than you might think, right? Who are like, I don't want to admit, but I really liked that I had to be at home to a certain degree, because it made me reconnect. All that time I was spending running around, it was really good for my business, don't get me wrong, right? Today we had a whole team meeting first time meeting a lot of my team members actually, and we were looking at our website and our domain rating, and our marketer said, this is because you were running around for 4 years, getting, Eugenie's name out there. But also I was exhausted. I didn't have time for my family. I wasn't focusing on it. So I think what the pandemic made me realize is actually that is important, and I do need to make that time, and I need to dedicate, turn off at certain times. And it's harder though when you work from home and whatnot, but I'm being better about turning my computer off at a certain time, or just making sure that every week I'm, having family time. I think the bigger challenge probably for me, I'm still wrestling with myself, is we don't have kids yet and we want to. And I've always I've kept pushing it off, thinking, can I do both? Can I be a founder and a mom? But you know what? I'll do it, right? There's so many other women that do it. Why can't I? So at this point, we're kind of like, let's just do it.
Well, you know what's really interesting is that I'm sure the viewing and listening audience is nodding their head in agreement, because the things that we've been talking about are all real life experiences, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a multinational company or of a startup or of an organization that's getting ready to expand. We're all still people at the end of the day, and we all have very similar challenges and experiences. So one of the things that we do on the Share Your Stories platform is we ask entrepreneurs to share 3 words of advice. And I'm going to read your 3 words of advice, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about why they're important. So one is persistence, the second is innovation, and the third is network.
Cool. Okay, so persistence. If you building a business is so hard, no matter how many people you have around me, but if you're a founder and then you don't really, I mean, there's so many other words that come with persistence, right? Really believe in your vision and just persist until, I know we also have to understand when it's time to let go and say, okay, this didn't work out and I'm going to move on to my next endeavor or whatnot. But I think if I hadn't really just pushed and been persistent to this business, it wouldn't have gotten to where it is now. And so I think without that, it's a lot of hard work and grit. Everything has to be innovative. People get so bored with the same old, right? Things are moving so fast. And so, but I think innovation, I think I'm going to flip that a little bit on its head, is that we don't have to be innovative for the sake of being innovative, right? So, we're trying to build a private version of Facebook, but people know how to use Facebook. So the innovation is in the privacy, protecting the data, the curation and customizing that experience, taking it from the way that Facebook has presented groups and community and making it more our own, almost going back to basics. So I also think we need to look at innovation in different ways. And then finally with network, 100% would not be here if my network didn't support me in a million different ways. So, they always say your network is your network, your net worth is your network, right? But, going out to our friends and family who invested in Eugenie in round 1, we just had an idea and a vision, and they invested in my husband and myself, to today, people still send recommendations. And, I haven't talked to a couple people in 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden I'll get a Facebook message to say, hey, you need to meet such and such because they can really benefit from Eugenie. So, the networking, not only from the existing relationships, but the new ones that I've created in this journey, 100% could not have done it on my own. So, I can't stand here and take all the credit. It's definitely been everyone around me that's gotten me here.
Well, I think that's a really wonderful way to wrap up our conversation, because one of the reasons why I created Business Mentorship Keepin It Real was because we wanted to increase the visibility of founders like yourself and give you an opportunity to introduce the person behind the logo. Because, I'm sure you'll agree, we spend all this time, money, and energy on building a brand and creating the right colors for our logo and all of those sorts of things. And we forget that there's a real life person sort of behind the scenes and keeping everything moving forward. So I really want to thank you very much for sharing some of that with us today and giving us some insight into the platform and really keeping it real and being very honest about your experience. So I'd like to thank you very much for that.
No, thank you so much for having me. I think, honestly, that's transparency and if we're not real with our fellow founders and with each other, then we paint a picture of unattainable reality. So I think it's really important that you're sharing these stories and people are just sharing how it is. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And to you, our viewing and listening audience, I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And we hope that the introduction to Susan and her wonderful platform, Eugenie, will give you some ideas of how you may like to connect with her in the near future. And we'll put all of Susan's contact information in the various different platforms so that you can reach out to her. And I'd like to send out a special thanks to the Grow Your Biz team for giving us an opportunity to really highlight and profile the wonderful entrepreneurs in their network. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Susan. And I certainly look forward to keeping in touch.
Me too.